Hey, this is Nathan Motz, and you're listening to the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Rui Costa já acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira, golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo! Bateu, golo, 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 golo! Ronaldo! Obrigado, Cristiano! Portugal vai Éder, chuta! Gol! Gol!
And we welcome you to episode number 97 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net and Palma Media. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to I think this is the first pod of 2025. And what a great way to start the new year with just an unbelievable match that just knocked my socks off. And I'm being facetious. That's a new word I've learned in the new year as well. So first of all, I miss all you guys. Obviously, not a lot of interaction in the last couple months. It's been kind of quiet on my end with no shows to promote, and I've just kind of taken a little bit of a step back with the pod, given that there hasn't been any games. But we were right back in it today, as we are recording this on Thursday night. Thursday was the first leg of the Nations League Quarterfinals between our Seleção and Denmark, and the Danes get the victory in the first leg of that of the two-leg quarterfinal in Denmark, 1-0. A second half goal in the 78th minute did the Seleção in. And ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. This has to be right up there with one of the worst displays under Roberto Martinez. It was like there was not a lot of positive, other than I think the white uniforms looked pretty slick, and it wasn't more than a goal. That's pretty much the positives that I got from the match. But we will get more into the match here in just a moment, as we have Nathan Motz joining us in just, I would say, 30 seconds or so from Portugal.net. He'll have some thoughts as usual on the match that happened Thursday, and what to look forward to on Sunday, as the second leg of the quarterfinal takes place at the Alvalade in Lisbon, where Portugal hopes to turn around their fortune after a very, very disappointing game on Thursday. There's just no other way to say it. But of course, you can find us on social media, everywhere on social media. You can find us on X. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. I believe we are on Threads. I don't know if we're on Blue Sky. I think I did. I don't know, but I'm never on there, so I don't know. But if anybody wants to start a Blue Sky account for us, go ahead. Be great, and just I'll feed you all the information from the other accounts. But yeah, follow us on all our social medias. Obviously, we are on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. That way you know when these episodes come out. And, of course, email the show, selecaopod@gmail.com, and selecaopod.com is the website. I think that is all of the platitudes to begin this episode. But let's bring in Nathan now, of course, from Portugal.net. And, Nathan, how are you, my friend? And I know it's March the 20th, but I guess Happy New Year.
Yeah, I know. It's been such a long time, since we've been able to talk to Seleção. I was just marveling about that. It's just I was having withdrawal symptoms, just couldn't wait, and you pegged it just right. It was just so disappointing, the first game of the new year ending up like that.
I mean, doing this show now for as long as I have, I think, man, what are we, 2025? So in May, it'll be 7 years at the episode. Geez, 7 years. But the one thing I learned by doing this podcast is that that November to March lull sucked.
Yeah.
In terms of Seleção football.
Yeah.
Let's not even talk about like the product that we saw today. I was happy to see the team on the field for the first time since November playing meaningful football.
Yeah.
And then that soured rather quickly by the way that they played today. But yeah, that lull from November to March, it just sucks. So I'm, for at least, there's another positive. At least we have some Seleção football to watch again after a long hiatus.
Yeah, I agree. And it's always a good day when the Seleção plays. I try to keep that perspective, even though, I have to admit the emotion watching this game was really different, I think, than normal for me. There's typically a lot of frustration. There's times when I watch this play and I think, oh, if this pass would have gone different, or that particular shot would have just gone in, or we could have gotten a foothold in the game. Or I felt very discouraged today watching the team play.
From start to finish,
there was really no point where I felt that we had a genuine opportunity to create something meaningful and obtain a result from the match. That's a very rare feature. The other thing I would mention is it's been a long time since I genuinely felt that we escaped, a real hiding. This easily could have been 3-4-0.
Oh yeah.
Easy. And it's genuinely pretty rare. I can remember feeling that way. It's as if this team has regressed, which is, it makes me sad, obviously, as a supporter, and obviously, the Nations League aside, uncomfortable with the idea of continuing to progress through World Cup 2026 preparations with the type of strategies that we saw today.
Yeah, we're talking with Nathan Motz here at Portugal.net as we are about to get into the match that saw Portugal lose against Denmark in the first leg of the Nations League quarterfinals. Let's go to what you kind of hit on, and I even mentioned it a little bit on X earlier today. It was 0-0 for the majority of the match. 78th minute, Denmark finally breaks through, and I thought that, I think there was a play where I believe it was Uzohms right at the end line. He hits the ball, like there's a pass going towards an attacker for Denmark, and they think that the ball is about to go out for a corner that was hit off a deflection off of another defender. And Uzohms all of a sudden, he's a smart player, but just no one had really a great game today. But he made a smart play and got behind the Denmark player and hit the ball right off of his leg right before the ball crossed the end line. And I thought, that's a great heads-up play. And I think, what, this is the turning point. Just heads-up play, get things in motion. I would say 30 seconds after that, Portugal loses the ball, and Denmark wastes another opportunity. And I think Denmark might rue the missed opportunities, given that it was only 1-0. They could be happy with the win, and they should be happy with the win. It's a well-deserved win. But the fact that they're only going into Lisbon on Sunday up 1-0, to me, that is a bit concerning. Or actually not even concerning, but I would be a little discouraged. And if I'm Roberto Martinez and I'm the rest of this squad, I'm like, hey, we played maybe our absolute worst game, and we only got banged with one goal against us. This is time to take over and go take care of this and get us to the semifinals. But this was as bad of a performance as I've seen from the Seleção under Martinez. Yeah. Whatever game it was, whether it's Nations League qualifying or during the Euros. But this was, I heard the word flat. I used the word disjointed, uninspired. These guys don't play as a unified front because they're all over Europe and in Saudi Arabia. But then you also see a team like Denmark who had the same amount of time off. And, I thought this game came a little quick given that there was club football this past weekend. But, I mean, Portugal has no excuse if Denmark is going to play the way they did. So it was just a real disappointing effort today and just a real eye-opening one for me, to say the least.
Yeah, I would just like to set aside a few moments to talk about Denmark, before we talk about how awful the Seleção were. Right from the pre-match press conference, their manager mentioned aggression, as kind of the tone that he wanted to bring to the match. And you could really see that in the way that his players got after us. They picked our pockets easily and often in our own half more times than is typical for our team, and including against a side that has two possession specialists in Neves and Ventinha, who are running circles around people at PSG.
Yes.
And none of that was successful against the Danes, pressing regime. I thought it was hugely impressive, and really, if their finishing is any better, or if Diogo Costa is any worse, the Danes are through before we even go to Lisbon. Sure. And I agree that what you hope here is that psychologically the Seleção are looking to capitalize on the fact that the Danes were errant in their finishing, weren't able to kill the game. That's the advantage of there being a two-legged tie, and you're the second to go at home. This is an opportunity for Portugal to let this go, let this result go. It was a bad result, bad performance, and hopefully obtain something better. I still think this tie is winnable in light of how we play. I'll just try to be hopeful and say that. That said, it's clear that we were beaten by the better team today, and if we have any intention of earning a positive result, there's going to have to be some massive changes, not just in personnel, but in terms of the spirit of the side and the aggression, the tempo that we're playing.
Yeah, let's first head to the touchline and Roberto Martinez. A lot has been made of since he's been hired. Not the hire that anyone expected. Then he goes on this winning streak during Euro qualification where they go undefeated. But we both knew, you and I, and the guests that I've had on this pod, we all knew that he'd be judged by the actual European Championship tournament. Didn't go great. A lot of questions in that tournament in terms of usage of certain players. And I thought that the match specifically against France, to me, was a fireable offense. Me personally. A lot of people, obviously, again, today, even though it's a two-legged matchup, the natural reaction is get rid of Martinez, get rid of Martinez, get rid of Martinez. It's almost like we already know he's not the guy he's not the guy for the job that he's in right now. But I don't see, unless they are absolutely embarrassed on Sunday, I don't see them making a change. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a change. I'm just saying that I don't see the Federation making a change. And I only see a change happening if there's not a Portuguese flag being flown in 2026 at a World Cup match. So I think we have to, while some of us, myself included, are a little frustrated with Martinez, if anyone has an expectation that he's going anywhere, in my opinion, I don't have any other insight other than my opinion here. I think everyone's going to be, it's just wasted breath thinking that the Seleção or that the Federation would do anything to Roberto Martinez other than, an embarrassing, bowing out at the Nations League. What do you think?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I'll say something positive about him before I criticize. The starting 11 that he's put out today, to be completely fair, is probably the same starting 11 that almost every supporter would have advocated for before the match. I can't think of too many people who would quibble with the way that he organized the team. It wasn't an unreasonable. It was 4-3-3. He didn't try to do something weird with a 3-5-2. Remember how he started his tenure with Portugal was very experimental, some really strange combinations of players. He didn't do any of that today. He put in the top two performing midfielders, took out Bernardo Silva. I think we can criticize more deeply his tactics and the way that he is preparing the squad to actually perform. And you look again, we talked about the difference between the way the Danes approached the match and the way that we did. Our play is lethargic and slow, and the Danes were all over the pitch, almost as if they were properly managed, almost as if they had a manager to instill in them some sort of fighting spirit, not just a home field advantage. They actually knew how they wanted to approach this match and made it clear that they were going to impress their will upon us. And so I think that's been lacking from Roberto Martinez's approach to managing the Seleção the entire time, and has been people's criticism. I think after today, it'd be unsurprising to note that whatever semblance of support he may have had has eroded. But I agree. I don't think the Federation is going to be willing to move on. That just doesn't seem to be their style. I think it would take further continued damaging losses in order to change their mind at this point, based on what I've seen so far.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm sure that answer was awesome. I had some technical issues on my end, so I didn't hear any of it. But I'm gonna go with it was awesome, and I'm a think, and I agree. I think you're right. So that's on me. I apologize for that. It should be fine on the recording here. But if I was to have my druthers on what you said, and you said it so nicely, the lineup was as good as it could have. And I thought so too. I was like, could Palhinha have made it in? Yeah. But who could have? Because Bernard Silva had been in. Yeah. But it's like, but again, it's one of the good problems to have, right? It's like having the talent, right?
I don't. I mean, that again, that's what's so troubling now. Unlike in the beginning of his tenure, he was making clear errors in the way that he was organizing the individual talent. You know, it was pretty plain to see he was putting strange formations on the pitch that weren't working. This is not the case today. The team is individually, the way it's constructed isn't bad. They're not playing good football. They're playing incoherent football. They're playing slow. They're allowing other teams, and all due respect to Denmark, they've got some great players. I was hugely impressed with them today. But individually, I still feel Portugal is a better squad, unable to impress our will in any way at all. At 54% possession, all of it harmless, all of it lacking vertical depth, right? Just horizontal, safe possession. One shot on goal from a defender, no less. You know, after a goal mouth scramble is Renato Veiga in the first half. I was like, our best chance of the match. It's insipid. It's a really poor performance. And we can continue to wax indignant about that. I'm frustrated that it's very clear at this point that Martinez can't inspire this team to a greater level. He can't organize these talented individual parts into a better whole. That's pretty obvious. It was already obvious, I think, possibly even before the Euros, as good as qualification was. Definitely, the Euros confirmed it, and now we're getting an even more sour confirmation that this can't go on.
Yeah, and you know what? And the thing I always thought about the Euros when the draw came out, I mean, I shouldn't say there was never, but given the talent on that on this squad, that qualification was a joke. And it should have been, and I think it was used as a very, very long kind of experimental training camp to see who he has and who he hasn't in terms of what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. It didn't go as well as we hoped for in the Euros. Again, a relatively simple Nations League qualification where there was 3 wins in the first 3 matches, and then I mean, all they had to do was get, I think, another win in the last 3, and they would have won the group. So it's all about these kind of matches now for Roberto Martinez in terms of his, and I don't want to say legacy, he's barely been here, but for his run as Portugal manager, And in important matches, in knockout matches, in matches that matter, for the most part, his team has not showed up positively. It was a round of 16 victory and then a very uninspiring loss against France.
Yeah.
Slovenia went to PKs. Thank goodness for Diogo Costa.
Yeah.
And by the way, if your name was Diogo today, you had a hell of a game in keeping the score as low as it was. But it's just been uninspired, and it's one of the fears that many people who love this squad, like you and I, and I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but it was one of the fears coming from his job with Belgium, with their golden generation, that he, much of the opinions of those who follow the Belgian national team, he wasted that generation. They made it to a semifinal of the World Cup, but that was it. But they were never really a threat in anything else. This Portuguese team won tournament with Roberto Martinez at the helm, a quarterfinal appearance at the Euro, but it was never inspiring. This match today was the worst of them all, and it was only a 1-0 loss, and it could have been a lot worse. So and I think what you're saying is right on here. Maybe the players know it too, but as I transition to the players here, the players have to have some sort of fault on them as well.
Sure.
And it's easy to. I mean, I'm in a group chat with some of my best friends, and I'm like, Roberto Martinez has is the weak link of this national team, but they're right to mention. These players are getting paid big time money at big time clubs, and they're put in positions to start and play the majority of the game, sometimes all the game, and they're not showing up. And it's a lack of cohesion, whatever it is, but it's also, you gotta, my buddy Steve Flayda said, I mean, effort is not something that should be coached, and the effort wasn't there today at all.
Yeah, it's difficult to know where that comes from. I think that's what, when I look at social media, I'm reading some of the reactions. A lot of it is just kind of like disbelief. It's how can this degree of talent so badly underperform? For us who have been watching Champions League football, seeing PSG run circles around their opponents, and really their high tempo pressing regime that is it's suffocating other teams, and it's actually pretty satisfying to watch. I wasn't really much of a PSG supporter until Vitinha and João Neves.
Half the nation is over there now, man.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting to watch. It's enjoyable to watch. But I have to say that even Vitinha and Neves today were lackluster, in my opinion. But we can look at certain metrics. Vitinha was on the ball a lot. So was Neves. There's some good tackles here and there, good recoveries, but the two are not able in tandem to bring to Portugal what they do their club side. And I have to think a lot of that is going to have to come back to management. It's temperament, it's mentality. The way that we're approaching these games is wrong. And the results on the pitch are just confirming that. What is difficult is to know kind of what we're discussing here, the degree of blame that goes to these talented players. But when everyone, pretty much down to the last man, except Diogo Costa, who was excellent today, is playing badly, it's difficult then to kind of become more critical of that individual effort. I just don't think the way that this team is tactically engineered is working for anyone. We were saying the same kind of stuff years ago with Fernando Santos' old.
Towards the end,
it became very clear the way he was constructing teams. There was no opportunity for these players to reach their maximum potential and bring to bear their skill in a way that served the purposes of the squad. And we're just watching that happen to us again. And I agree that and we can just be blunt here because this is your show, man. We can say what we want.
Say what you want, man.
But I think it's abundantly clear this Martinez can't manage at this level. he's a nice man, and I don't say
Nathan
that in a mean way.
Motz, my goodness.
I don't say it in a mean way. It's not a matter of there's no vindictiveness in it.
No.
He's incapable of leading at this level. He doesn't have the ability, and that's okay. I don't either. I don't have that ability either. That's why we're talking about it like we are here, as opposed.
Listen, man, we're in our own domiciles doing this podcast, and we're not here to. Yeah. I couldn't get to Lisbon in 3 days and be like, absolutely. You know what, guys, this is how we win the game.
Yeah, and I admit that. I think what's frustrating is that for whatever reason, the Federation of Portuguese Football does not draw that conclusion. It's bizarre, and I don't understand that. It would be really interesting. To be a fly on the wall in those meetings.
I do. I do.
You do?
I have a very fairly convincing argument as to why it is the way it is right now.
Okay, I'm going to have to guess. This probably has something to do with money, is what I'm thinking.
I don't think it's money, because they make money hand over fist. Mm-hmm. It's maybe the player or the agent who's generated a lot of money, and I'll just go with that.
Okay.
I'm talking about judgment, and I'm talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. Again, the influence there is we have to just call it what it is. And again, I'm not. You mentioned it. You mentioned it in your last response. I'm not pinpointing really anybody on the field today, because everybody was bad. Like it's so easy to go after Ronaldo. He's 40. He played 90. Yeah, but you know what? Bruno Fernandes is 29, 30. He didn't do anything. These two young kids that are supposed to be the future of this midfield, they didn't do anything. I wasn't going to pinpoint anybody today, because there was too many. There was just too many. And I even kind of going to something that I put out on X before the match when the lineups were out. That spine of that starting 11 was really interesting to me, given the partnership that the PSG partnership with Vitinha and João Neves, but also Roberto Martinez going with Vega and with Vega again with Ruben Dias, because Vega got a lot of time towards the end of qualification for the Nations League, and I thought was pretty solid.
Yeah.
And given that, and we've talked about it since we're always looking for that second center back, whether it's someone to pair with Pep, and now Pep's gone, and now it's that second center back to pair with Ruben Dias. Gonçalo Inácio came in at a very inopportune time, in my opinion, today.
Yeah.
But he's been bandied about. Tony Silva, he's kind of on a downward trajectory right now, so I don't think he's in a great spot for anyone to argue at this moment. I thought Renato Vega was the best of the bunch in terms of he's playing every day with Juve right now. I mean, Ignacio is also at Sporting, but given that he had a lot of time towards the end of the qualification period, there's a familiarity and maybe something that it builds with partnering with Ruben Dias. But we still don't really know who that ideal pairing with Ruben Dias is. Do you have an opinion on who you think it should be at this point, or are you still kind of up in the air in your opinion on that as well?
I think the way that Vega's been playing proves that he belongs there today. And I think I'm in writing my player ratings article, which I'll post tomorrow. I think
Portugal.net.
Exactly. I think the way that I said it was he should feel confident that he's not going anywhere if he keeps playing like that, and in particular if others continue to play the way that they have. Antonio Silva, in the last few matches for Portugal, was making mistakes. Gonçalo Inácio came on today and immediately made a pretty serious error that nearly allowed Højlund to score the opener in the second half before he eventually did score.
Before you go on, I want to interrupt you in terms of and now I had the thought. It's very rare to see a manager substitute a center back for a center back.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the post match quotes or anything as to what the reasoning was. I saw something on X, and again, take X for what it is, but a lot of the talk on the radio side of things in Portugal was the substitutions today just didn't make sense, and it's not because of the goal. It just didn't seem like it made sense to me. The only one that really made sense was when Nelson Smith came in for Diogo Dalot, just because Dalot had the yellow card. I saw the reasoning there, but other than that, like, you bring in Neves.
Neves,
You could have. I mean, Palinha is right there.
Yeah.
And you bring in a center back for a center back. Usually, you want that cohesion through the 90 minutes, unless Roberto Martinez is seeing something that we didn't. But that substitution, that specific substitution, I thought was a little strange for me.
Yeah, I read that too. People were saying, we need a goal, and we're substituting in defensive players. It was almost like a white flag, telling Denmark, hey, you're succeeding so well that even though we need to score, we can't afford to do that right now because we need to stem the tide of your attacks. And that's really
we need to keep you from scoring, and then it didn't happen anyway.
And we still didn't succeed in that. So I think that was kind of an admission, really, for me of defeat right there, and it clearly didn't work. I would say, before I talk about the center back situation more, this match did remind me that aside from the group at PSG and maybe Bruno Fernandes, who's playing pretty well at Manchester United, we really don't have a lot of players who are just really killing it right now for their clubs. There's really not that many. Joao Cancelo is injured, Ramos is injured, Neves is in Saudi Arabia. All due respect to Saudi Arabia, but not at the top, of the international game. We have Diaz is at Manchester City, and Manchester City are playing bad right now. There's some interesting fluctuations of talent that go, or let's say results that go throughout a season. Right now, a lot of the Portuguese players are in a bit of a lull, and that really showed today as well. I think Pedro Neto's been okay for Chelsea. Leao's been very hot and cold this year for Milan, and they're just you could see that in the way that they played today. There were just only a few times when I really saw someone pull off a feat of skill. I thought, right there, that's the ability that's going to continue to carry this side against, I'm talking top quality teams like we're going to face in the knockout rounds of tournaments. And if we somehow get past Denmark, this side isn't going to be able to beat the teams that are coming in our side of the bracket. I forget exactly who we have next, but
it would be the winner of Germany.
Italy tie. Yeah. So, that's a no-go right there based on how these players are performing, really at every position. And that goes down to club form in some way. But, starting from the back, I really, our back line today is, we could nitpick their performance, but really, I don't think that they could have done any better. We had several goal line clearances. We had a fantastic performance from a goalkeeper. I don't necessarily think anyone there is wrong, but if the rest of your side can't inspire and build some sort of attacking minimum going forward, your defense is going to fail at some point.
Well, yeah, and I even say, like, the dam finally broke.
Yeah,
it was a bend not break kind of scenario, and it just finally, and the goal itself was fairly easy.
It was. They cut right through us. It made me think of some comments that were exchanged before the match. We had no natural defensive midfielder, just kind of a collection of number 8s that don't really prioritize defending. Let's just say that they work hard. But I really think the way that, in particular, Christian Eriksen, really mastered the center of the pitch. He cut through our passing lane. It was actually very simple the way that Denmark played, so direct and simple. It was really pleasing to watch. It was just frustrating because I didn't want to be so pleased with the way they were playing.
Yeah, no kidding.
I wanted to see us do well, but I think we made it really easy on Denmark today, and in part by we just didn't have the right defensive presence in the middle of the park. We couldn't. Bruno, I think, but we can probably create a whole podcast, and in his name, and just kind of get people to hate watch that. Bruno is one of those players. He's either going to have you singing his praises, or basically sending him death threats. And today he just reminded me there's something about the way he plays. It makes it very hard for others to be compatible with him. He lacks that complementary feature. The way his play doesn't lend itself to others kind of coming together in a cohesive unit sometimes. He struggled with Bernardo Silva a lot throughout his career. And today I just thought him alongside Vitinha and Neves, there's just something that's not working there. And that's a shame. That's a shame because those three players are probably our most informed players aside from Nuno Mendes in the whole squad. Neither of them, none of them played well today.
Well, there are some ramifications here for winning and losing this leg here. If you guys aren't aware, the winner of this two-leg quarterfinal between Portugal and Denmark, they will take the spot. They're the spot in Group F, and Group F of 2026 qualifying. And the winner of that 4-team qualification group will automatically make it to the World Cup of 2026. If Portugal somehow find a way to get to the semifinals of this Nations League tournament, they will be placed in Group F with Hungary, Ireland, and Armenia. If they lose against Denmark on the two-legged quarterfinal, they will then go to a Group C, which has Greece, Scotland, who they just had in their qualifying group for Nations League, and Belarus. So, again, on paper, I think either group is fine. You obviously want to dictate where you go with a win instead of a loss, but first things first, Nathan, Sunday's coming in just a couple of days, few days here, depending on when you're listening to this. What changes would you like to see in terms of lineup, and what would you like to see more of from this national team on Sunday, with the hopes of them getting a victory and heading to the semifinals in June?
Yeah, so kind of adding on to the things that we can't say, but we're going to say them anyway. I would like to see someone else start up top. Diogo Jota, maybe someone who can run a little bit harder at the back line than Ronaldo can now. Diogo Jota, just full transparency, is not in the best form himself, so that does need to be said. Neither is Joao Felix. But of the two, I would put Jota in and just say, all I want you to do is run hard at that back four and just see if you can find a way to unsettle them and create some space.
Nathan, put the kid in. He'd be playing in his home stadium. He could put the weight of the entire nation on his very young, still developing shoulders. Time to put Kenda. Put him on top. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, why not, right? Give him a shot.
At this point, when again it's player for player, it's difficult to say. Yeah. Oh yeah, we should take this guy out. Bernardo Silva, may be the one that some people say, well, what if we replaced, Bruno with Bernardo, made Bernardo Silva kind of more like an actual number 10, and allowed Vitinha and Neves to play off him. I wouldn't be totally opposed to trying that, but it kind of goes back to what we've talked about this whole podcast in terms of the management, in terms of the spirit of the side, the temperament of the side. If that doesn't change, it's not really going to matter who we play. It's just that the football is too slow. It's too predictable. The crosses are terrible.
We should try those more.
And I think it's just difficult to say, and that's the tendency we all have as supporters is we get so upset. We're like, oh, try this, try that, do this, do that, take this player out, put this player in, as if that's going to change, the underlying condition, which is that this squad is not well integrated. We don't have a manager who's preparing this team to mentally to play. And that's a shame. So Bernardo Silva and Diogo Jota might be the two that I would say let's try to find a way to work them in. Otherwise, this team needs to play differently. We don't just need different players. We need to play differently. And that comes from the manager. And I have to admit, I don't see a lot of change coming there.
Would you rather have someone, because I know you just said doing, I look great right now. It looks like I have my eyes. Not sure what's going on there. Let me see if I can get myself off the screen here and get us back on. And still there. Let me go ahead and take myself off there. Let's see. And the camera. You can still hear me though, right, Nathan?
I can still hear you. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Let me go ahead and anyway, we'll fix this in post here. But
okay.
Would you rather have Diogo Jota by himself up top and replacing Ronaldo, or try to figure out having two up top with Diogo Jota playing with Ronaldo? Because there has been a little bit of success, not much to go off of, but there has been a little success with those two up top.
I said, it's tough because, if we put Diogo Jota and Ronaldo, and then we're going to have to reconfigure midfield, we're going to have to potentially drop, Neto or Leao. There's some consequences there. We already know, I think, based on what we saw today, we really need a defensive midfielder anyway.
So that was going to be my I guess counter to that, which is I think the midfield has to change anyway, and it's not because the talent isn't there. Of course the talent's there, and again, it's one of those things that's not the issue. Talent is not the issue.
Yeah.
But I think having a guy like João Palhinha in that lineup in a game that you must have, I think he is a must-have kind of player in a must-have game.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's going to bump. It's going to bump Palhinha. I mean, Vitinha. It could bump João Neves. It would likely of those two would likely be João Neves.
Yeah.
But then again, what do you do if you bring in Bernardo Silva? Do you sit Rafael Leão if you're going to go two up top? If you only go one up top, are you going to go with Ronaldo or are you going to go with Diogo Jota, as you mentioned?
Yeah.
Do you go with Gonçalo Ramos, who isn't in great form, but he's an option?
Ramos is injured, so we can't.
He is injured. I'm sorry.
We can't do that. I'm almost wondering. Chelsea have been experimenting with Pedro Neto as a striker, as opposed to a winger. So it might be prudent to at least consider Neto up top. Put in Diogo Jota, on the right, Leao on the left, and at least see. I mean, we can't do worse. We seriously can't do worse than we did today.
But a shakeup definitely needs from today's performance. A shakeup should be made to this starting 11 for Sunday.
Yep, I think we have to. I don't think that trotting out the same 11 is going to yield anything different. So I'm just saying, again, it's easy for me to sit here, and make comments at Martinez about what he should or shouldn't do, but there's some opportunity.
Oh, Nathan, don't qualify it. This is a fan podcast. Come on. Let's, we've already, everyone knows. Yeah, we could be, come on.
Yeah. I just think that, let's give Cristiano a rest, and we can always bring him in the second half if we need to try that. But run
or take him off if it's not working.
Yeah, for sure. But there's opportunity to run some different forwards up there. We can put in a good holding midfielder to try to deal with Eriksen in particular. I think that would be prudent. And then from there, I really like the way the rest of the team is built out. They got to play better, but I think that the defense today did about as good a job as you're going to do. And Diogo Costa was magnificent. I think that he deserves a lot more credit. If we go through, it's going to be largely due to his efforts today in goal.
Yeah, I saw a few times. Even I had a text from my godson, Michael Teixeira, who said Diogo Costa's back has to be hurting because he's put this squad on his back time and time again since he's been called up as the number one keeper. So Nathan, if you had to make a choice, obviously we know where we're going, but I mean we'll make it through. Yes.
Yeah, I think we actually will. As bad as we played today, I still think it's impossible for me to vote against us. I think we're going to be at home, and we've played horribly. I would like to believe that will be enough for this squad to look at the opportunity presented and take advantage of it. I think we win 2-0.
Okay, I think we win 3-1. I think we win 3-1. So. And then we'll see what happens. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe if you have it off the top of your head, what are we looking at in terms of Italy and Germany after one match? Do you know?
Yes, Germany came back from being a goal down and beat Italy 2-1.
Okay, and that was in Germany or in Italy?
I believe it was in Italy actually. So Germany, I think, is going to the home leg, and with a lead. So. I wouldn't bet against the Germans. Honestly, it's probably who we're going to play. And we all know how those matches go. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just try to beat Denmark first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Nathan. Make sure you guys check out Nathan's article, his player ratings from Thursday's match of the first leg of the quarterfinal of the Nations League tournament. The Denmark-Portugal 1-0 loss. For the Seleção. Check out his player ratings at Portugal.net, and make sure you follow Nathan on X on Twitter at Nathan Motz. That's NATHANMOTZ. Nathan, as always, thank you for your time, bud, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks, Danny.
All right, brother. That will do it for us here on episode number 97 of the Seleção podcast. Again, my thanks to Nathan Motz for joining us on this episode. All to play for in the second leg of the Nations League quarterfinal at the Alvalade on Sunday. Make sure you guys tune in, and then make sure you guys tune into our pod after. Don't know if we're going to go live. We'll figure that out as we get closer here. But just make sure you are subscribing to us on all your podcasting platforms. Subscribing to us on YouTube. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you guys are ready to watch and listen to whatever platform of this podcast you are enjoying. My thanks again to Nathan Motz for joining us on episode number 97 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net and Palma Media. And as always, Força Portugal!